Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to a wonderful February 4th IncrediChat tonight. Tonight, we've got a really exciting show planned for you. Before we get started, make sure you are liking, sharing, following us here on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Share out in those comments. We're going to have the questions, question things up on all the platforms for you guys tonight who's watching. But tonight, we're very excited because we have a fantastic guest, and you saw earlier on, the picture was up and we've been advertising it. Please welcome to tonight's show, the legendary, hey, Sargent, I know you're excited for tonight's show, buddy. Please welcome to tonight's show, the amazing Bob Bergen. Bob, welcome to the show.
Wait, who's excited?
We've got this young man, his name is, and I always get trouble saying it, Sargent. Serigne. He is a big animation fan, and he's out here on the East Coast, but he hits the cons. He's met Rob, he's met Leslie Carrera Rudolph, all these people, and he knows everything about all you guys. So I know he is thrilled for.
All right, well, I'll try not to get this wrong. I don't know, but Sargent, nice to thanks for joining us.
Hey, so yes, so as you can now know, everybody, if you don't already know, Bob is the voice of Porky Pig.
He tries. He tries.
He tries.
I'm not ignoring you. I'm making sure that I got good internet the entire time.
Well, we want to make sure we have that. But no. So so tonight we definitely want to learn more about who you are, Bob, how you got into animation, and we'll talk a little bit about how people who are interested in voice acting can also get into animation. So I know you have a pretty interesting story.
It's kind of a story that people know. You know, I've told it a million times, but so I'll try to make it short. But I wanted to be Porky Pig when I was a kid. My dad moved the family to LA when I was 14. Not for me, for him. He took a job. I found Mel Blanc's phone number in the phone book. I called him up. I crashed a recording session. Realized he's still doing it, so I'm not going to be doing Porky Pig right now. And I started studying voiceover, and I studied voiceover with everybody that offered a class. And my animation guru was a guy named Dawes Butler. And if people don't know the name Dawes Butler, Google that name. He was a pretty influential, successful person in the animation world. He was like every voice that Mel Blanc wasn't.
Yeah.
And I studied acting. I studied improv. I got my first agent a week out of high school, and worked 5 years as a tour guide at Universal Studios to support myself. And eventually was a working voiceover actor when Mel Blanc passed away in '89, and Warner Brothers held auditions. And the first Looney Tunes job I did was Tiny Toon Adventures in 1990. But I'd been already working in the business, so I had a good agent. I was kind of successful, so I was able to get that audition. So that was a long story short, because people have heard that a million times, but that's how I got in the business.
Well, it's a great story, and so we're sitting here talking about Mel, right? And for somebody who doesn't necessarily know much about Mel, for some people who are listening, so he was the voice of pretty much the entire Warner Brothers library.
Pretty much, yeah, with the exception of Elmer Fudd and Granny, and there were a handful of the Roadrunner, but he got sole screen credit.
Yeah.
He had asked for a raise and they said no. And then he said, well, can I have sole screen credit? And they were like, oh, there he is. And they're like, well, that won't cost us anything. So sure. So every cartoon, whether he was all the voices or not, said voice characterizations Mel Blanc, which I will tell you, because she was a good friend of mine, did not please June Foray at all.
Mm-hmm.
But, what could Jet do? It put him on the map, and by the way, he did not get rich doing these cartoons. He made his fortune, if you want to call it a fortune. He was a modestly successful actor.
Mm-hmm.
Not until TV and commercials and residuals, because he didn't get residuals for those shorts. They were made for the theaters. There were no reruns, and when they were rerun on TV, he did not get paid for it. His son actually, I think, sued Warner Brothers after his death, and found that there was a little clump of them that were airing during the residual cycle, and so he got money for his widow. But no, Mel Blanc was a genius. He was there's no other word. He was a genius.
Yeah. And I mean, and again, people who don't necessarily know about Mel, and the same thing really goes for June Foray, Dawes Butler, Don Messick. All these people really had their roots in radio.
Sure. Yeah.
That's
I mean, when I crashed that recording session to watch Mel Blanc, or when June would come to a session, June was dressed like she was going out for the evening. And I remember the first time I worked with her was on Tiny Toons, and we had been friends since I was a kid. I met her when I was about 14, 15. And I said to her, "You do know this is, there's no camera." And she goes, "I come from radio. You dress for the audience." I said, "But there's no audience here." She goes, "There is in my mind."
Wow.
She wanted to respect the profession. You dress.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you even see, and like I just had that picture of Mel up a moment ago. Like, you see any of those like old clips from the different radio shows, like a Jack Benny show or Burns and Allen. And, like they were all very well dressed in all these shows.
When I crashed that recording session, he was sitting at the mic in a double-breasted suit with a tie and a carnation in his lapel, and it was just a whole bunch, like maybe 4 or 5 people in the studio and him. There was no reason to get dressed up, but no, he put on a tie to go to work. That's what you did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And now let me just ask too, because you mentioned we're talking about Mel. I want to talk about Dawes Butler because, Mel definitely gets a lot of notoriety because of all those Looney Tune characters, and certainly a lot of the voices of the characters that Dawes did. Like, I mean, they're very recognizable characters, but the name behind them, unless you're really a big animation fan, people don't really know who Dawes Butler was. So maybe tell us a little bit about what it was like studying with him, because I know a lot of people, Nancy Cartwright, who is Jeff Bennett, right?
Corey Burton, Bill Farmer, Mona Marshall. I could go on and on and on. Lucille Bliss used to come by and work out. Penny Singleton would come by and work out. June would come by and work out. He lived in Beverly Hills in a very tiny house. Which probably today is $5 million because it's Beverly Hills, and he had a guest house, and the guest house was his class, and this big long table, and you walked inside, and it looked like Bill Hanna and Joe Barbera had exploded with toys and stuffed animals and cells. He did. I'm really dating myself because I didn't see the original, but Beanie and Cecil was a live puppet show produced by Bob Clampett. And he had the original Beanie puppets.
Oh, did he?
It was amazing. And his class was $10 or a handshake, whatever you happen to have. And he wrote all the material for the class himself. And I don't think Dawes ever stressed or discussed voices. It was all about acting and character. And he was a very short, unassuming man. I would say a shy, humble guy. Funny, great sense of humor. Dry sense of humor, but he didn't want stardom. He didn't want to be I don't think he wanted celebrity necessarily. Mel did. Mel loved it. He went on the Jack Benny show on radio and TV. But Dawes, when he would talk about acting is reacting. Listen to those words. You're telling a story. There's intent, there's purpose behind it. And he was also this is one of my golden rules with my students. I completely stole it from him. If you physically play the character, the voice will follow, because you might be having a 2 or 3-way conversation with yourself. So Dawes would demonstrate. When he would do Yogi Bear, he would stick his chest out because that's where he lived. And when he would do other characters, he would change. And we do that. I do that, if I'm doing Porky and Tweety in the same conversation, different facial expression, different body language, so the voices don't blend. But he was adorable. And when he passed away, it was a shock because he wasn't that old. I mean, he was sick. He'd had strokes. He'd had cancer. I think he'd had heart attacks. I think he'd broken his hip. So, he wasn't healthy, but you expect your idols to go on forever.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, because and some other names are popping up here too. So another one, and obviously you worked with him on Tiny Toon Adventures, and I'm sure a bunch of other things, was Don Messick. Another, like, really somebody that I think maybe now that Scooby has kind of exploded over the last, I'd say 20, 30 years. So I don't know if Don really ever had the chance to see what Scooby, the monster that Scooby is now for Warner Brothers.
First of all, I don't think he ever expected. Nobody expects anything to last for is it 50 years now?
Yeah, it's been on for 50 years. But like,
Yeah.
because they were doing all these iterations on Saturday mornings, and obviously it was Don and Casey Kasem really leading the charge on all the iterations of that. Because they were the two constants on all these things.
And Frank Walker, he's been Fred since day one, and now he's Scooby. But
exactly.
But yeah, Don played a lot of dogs. Don was Scooby Doo. Don was Scrappy Doo.
Bandit.
He was Astro, and Astro and Scooby are pretty much close to the same.
Exactly.
But yeah, Don was very shy, very unassuming, very sweet guy. I was actually intimidated by him because I thought he was kind of judgmental or aloof, and he was neither. He was just a very shy guy and a very sweet guy. Again, missed. I only worked with him on Tiny Toons. That was the only time I ever worked with him.
Well, now, let's talk a little bit about Tiny Toons, because when you talk about ensemble cast, and before the show we were talking about Charlie Adler. You also had like Tress MacNeille on there, Joe Alaskey, coming in and doing this character Porky. Obviously stepping into very, very big shoes at that time, because this was really the first big thing. I think prior to that, maybe they had done Box Office Bunny and maybe a couple of like specials and stuff where they were using, I guess, Jeff Bergman. I
think Tiny Toons might have been the first. I think Tiny Toons was the first post Mel Blanc project.
Okay.
Early '90s, yeah, they were doing Box Office Bunny. There were a bunch of shorts.
A couple of short ones there.
Yeah, I think Quackbusters might have been Mel's last project.
Yeah.
For the studio. Look, I got to tell you, I was scared to death that first job. I was doing Porky and Tweety, and June Foray was doing Granny with me, and we were friends. So having her there was great. But I'll tell you, having Andrea Romano there, and if your audience doesn't know who she is, Google her. One of the finest voice directors, casting directors that ever lived, who just spoke actor and just loved what she did, loved actors, and all of my first auditions were with her.
Yeah, no,
all of my first Looney Tunes auditions were with her.
And you mentioned her, and like you really think about all those shows that Warner's was really putting out, starting with Tiny Toons at that point in time. Like she was really involved, with the voices of all those shows, and again, just phenomenal ensemble casts that they really connected.
Oh my gosh, yeah, Candy Milo. You mentioned Jeff Bergman was doing Bugs and Daffy on that. First I ever met Jeff, and I'm working with him still today. Also one of the most brilliant actors I've ever known or worked with, and just a pussycat of a guy. But yeah, we talked about this earlier too. Voiceover people are nice.
Yeah. There's this great video, and I believe you're the one that posted it. Again, talking about the kindness behind the voice actors. There was the backstage tour at Warner Brothers, and you and Eric Garza and a couple of other guys, and like you just like stop the tour and everybody.
I used to be a tour guide at Universal.
Yeah,
and I know what it's like to have an encounter with a celebrity. It doesn't happen often because they would route the tours around the filming, so they wouldn't interrupt it. Well, we're walking past this tram, and I did not know we were being videotaped. Bowser had a buddy who was videotaping. We were doing a cast and crew picture that day for the Looney Tunes cartoons on HBO Max. And we're walking back, and I'm like, I didn't even say to the guys, would you do this? I just saw the tram full of people, and I said, you guys, nobody else is going to see this today, but this is Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck, and this is Yosemite Sam, and I'm Porky Pig. And they're like, and I said at the end, I think I said, you guys do speak English, don't you? Because what a waste if they didn't.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, I'm sure those people, I think it was you who's like, you all speak English, right? So
yeah.
I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, but and I put it on, I think I put it on YouTube. I think it's on my, I think it's on my Instagram. But look, the odds are pretty slim that we're going to be there. We don't record on the lot.
No.
We record at different studios, so it's really rare that we're actually at Warner Brothers. So that was a fun experience for me too.
Yeah. Well, now let me ask you a question, because you mentioned that about recording, and I mean, I definitely want to talk about more of the voices that you do. But I guess, and I've talked about this before I attended one of your classes. You are like such a real like bank of knowledge, and really someone who knows the voiceover field and community. So I mean, for anybody watching, if you have questions about voice acting, please shoot them out there. But the one thing I do want to ask, and I remember you talking about this in your class, is, and certainly now in the last year, everybody can record at home. I remember you said like the two places, if you wanted to get into voiceover, animation was LA, commercials was New York.
Well, commercials is anywhere actually.
And I remember, and this was again, we figured about at least 10 years plus ago when we had this conversation.
Right.
I was in your class. You said at this point now, with the way technology is, you know, somebody in their closet in, you know, the middle of Idaho is doing voices. So the competition bank has just blown up in that regard, because you can be anywhere now and do it and just patch it in like what we're doing here. Right. But the one thing I want to ask you, you know, and obviously you've been working now out of your own studio at home. Is there a difference? Like you said, you talked about walking into that session with June Foray, Mel, and all these folks together, and obviously Tiny Toons. You guys all sat around together. Now, and prior to the pandemic, everybody pretty much records separately. Is there a different vibe, a different energy to how those things are done?
Yeah, completely. Because and what's interesting is that voiceover, commercials, promos, that's been recorded at home for decades. Mm-hmm. Animation wasn't, because for TV it's ensemble. For a feature, you go to Disney, you go to Fox, you go to Sony. So that the pandemic hits, and within 2 weeks, all of us have always auditioned from home. In fact, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but can you see? That's my booth right there.
Yeah, actually, I'll give you the full screen so you can show everybody.
There you go. So that's my booth, and I'm in that little box throughout the day, most of the day, either auditioning or working. Within 2 weeks after the shutdown, all of us, after an investment and a learning curve, we're up and running again. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants it done a little bit differently. There's different ways to record it, but I miss human beings. You know, I've got one show I'm doing for Disney where most of the time I'm by myself, but a couple of episodes they've had the entire cast on Zoom, so we can at least work off of each other. But for the most part, it's the director, the producer, maybe writer, and us. And I cannot wait to go back into the studio on one hand, and on another hand, I kind of dig it. I don't have to drive. I can work more because I don't have to worry about, you know, being stuck in traffic.
Man, that California traffic is no joke.
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
So we do have a question here about another show that you worked on. You and I were talking Muppets earlier. What was it like working as Wembley on Fraggle Rock?
One of the joys of my career. John Semper, Cynthia Friedlob, who are our writer producers, who are two of the finest people. Forget talents; they're brilliant talents, but finest people I've ever worked with, and a cast that I consider family to this day. And we didn't do that. We only did one season. We didn't do that many episodes, but it was a pure joy. It was. I'll tell you a funny story about that. I had auditioned for every character except for Wembley.
Okay.
And I got a call back for Wembley, and Stu Rosen was the director. And I said, Stu, I can't do Wembley. I can't remember the name of the guy who did it originally for HBO.
Steve Whitmire.
Steve Whitmire. I was going to say, I think it's Steve Whitmire. Yeah. And he had a real gravelly, high squeaky Wembley. And I said, I can't do that physically. I can't do that voice. And Stu said, yeah, but let's hear what you can do. What's your interpretation of the character? And I said, I'm going to pass. It's just not me. And Stu, he smoked, and he takes a puff of cigarette. He goes, Bergen, Henson wants to hear you do it. You're doing it.
Oh, gee. Don't turn down Jim.
And I said, okay. And he said, look, they don't want the character to be the same as it was on HBO because they thought that manic energy might scare the Saturday morning crowd.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I still can't do it the way I can't do it. I can't do that voice. But I played him a little cuter and a little higher. Hey, Gobo. So, it will have worked out. And I didn't get any of the other characters I'd auditioned for. So, but the moral of the story is, kids, if you get a callback, do it.
Because you never know what that opportunity.
You do not know.
Now let me ask you in regards to that. So you said obviously Jim Henson wanted to hear you do your take on Wembley, and outside of Wembley, the other characters that you auditioned for, because again that show, I guess that either had just ended on HBO or was kind of running side by side.
Might have been side by side at the time. It might have been side by side.
For you and the other actors, was there a bit of a challenge to, I mean, again, outside of what you said about Wembley, but did you guys look at the HBO show to hear like how Jerry Nelson and Dave Goelz and all them were doing these voices and try to at least somewhat get close to that? Did Jim want that, or?
I don't know, because I never asked him. I will tell you that for the auditions, they gave us a reference for all the characters.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they were. I mean, the music was obviously very different. The feel was very different.
Yeah.
For me, it was just odd seeing them with legs. You know, you're not used to seeing Muppets with legs. But I had previously worked on a version of Muppet Babies called Little Muppet Monsters.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I've been kind of in the Henson umbrella for a few years. I didn't try to do the HBO version. I just tried to do what the writers were writing and what we were being produced to do. And I loved it. I loved every second of it. I loved the music. It was fun.
Now, you know, and again, speaking about voices and taking over a role, in that case, obviously, Steve was still Wembley at that point. I want to go back to Porky. So obviously, you get to do Porky. What? Yeah, and I know you said for Tiny Toons, it was very, very nerve-wracking for you when you first stepped into it.
Well, I'll tell you why it was. The first episode I did, I recorded raw. I recorded with the cast.
Mm-hmm.
That looks like it's from New Looney Tunes. It looks like it.
I think so.
No, it looks like it's from the Looney Tunes show. There's a lot of different Porkies. They had Mel Blanc's son Nolan to do a few episodes of Tiny Toons, and they had me replace him, and they had me dub over his previously recorded cartoons, which meant I had to do it. It's called ADR, where you're matching sync, and many of Mel's voices were sped up electronically.
Mm-hmm.
His Porky was sped up. Noel's Porky was sped up. Mine is not. Some do, most don't. So I had to match sync to Noel Blanc's performance, and I didn't think I did a good job. I thought I was actually never going to work again because he stuttered in places I wouldn't stutter, and his timing was not my timing. And I thought, well, I blew this, and no, they just kept hiring me. So, and there have been times I've not done them. I mean, there have been other, you know, people doing them over the last 30 plus years, but I think I'm like the 95%er.
Yeah, because I mean, consistently with the majority of the films or the shows, it is you as Porky. I mean, obviously Bugs and Daffy have changed hands so many times over the years. And again, going back to Mel, I mean, you know, man of 1,000 voices. I know people are writing some of that stuff in here. I mean, it says something when it takes like a whole team of multiple people to replace one man.
Well, I got to tell you, that's by design by the studio. Mel Blanc, if he said I want more money, they had to pay him more money. He was the only guy. They don't want that today. They want to make sure that, you know, we've got backup people. What if he's sick? What if he asks for too much money? This producer prefers this actor. Doesn't matter how many times they've done it, whatever. There's a lot of factors involved. When I first started doing Porky, they had like a 15-20 minute reference of Mel that they would play at every session. Some of them were from cartoons from the 30s, some from the 40s, some from the 50s, some from the 60s. And I would say, well, which one do you guys want? And they would look at me like I was speaking a foreign language. And they said, well, that's all Porky. I said, yeah, but it's Mel doing Porky at different stages in the careers, in the character's evolution.
Exactly.
So what do you want? And if they don't ask, or if they don't tell me what they want, My mind goes to Duck Dodgers, Robin Hood Daffy, Drip Along Daffy, that Chuck Jones era. That's my favorite. Now, but these Looney Tunes cartoons we're doing for HBO Max,
they're good.
We're doing Bob Clampett.
Yeah.
We're doing Tex Avery. We're doing pure Looney Tunes, and I think these have now become my favorite.
Yeah, no, I think they're great, and I think there's like a whole new generation. Like my son is becoming a big Looney Tune fans, and you mentioned Duck Dodgers. This is from the series that you guys did,
and that was a blast too. That was a super Spike Brandt, Tony Cervoni. There were some episodes that were just, I can guarantee, went over the kids' heads because they, the original Looney Tunes were never made for children. So the writing on this show was just so smart, and it was just a blast to do.
Now, because that's why I wanted to ask you, because obviously they showed you these video montage of Mel's Porky, and obviously at the beginning you were kind of giving the studio exactly what it is that they wanted with Porky. Obviously you've grown into the role over the last like 30 years.
Yeah.
Right? How have you started to keep honoring Mel, but also make Porky your own? In what ways?
So I never think Mel Blanc, because I can't be Mel Blanc. None of us will be his genius. I don't try. I don't attempt to. My goal is to keep the integrity of the character. I'll tell you some things that have happened over the years. I've had to re-audition for Porky at least a dozen times. I mean, I was doing Looney Tunes cartoons for HBO Max when they made me audition for a new pilot. So for a whole other bunch of producers, which ended up being delightful. It was so much fun. But I don't own the characters. So if they make you audition, I can tell you the first time they made me re-audition, it was like a punch in the gut. And the second time I was like, okay, this again. And then now it's like, look, I get it. I'm going to have fun with this because I know the character. When we auditioned for the original Space Jam, it was down to the wire. We were at LA Studios near Universal, and there were just a handful of us in the lobby waiting to go in. Any mimic can do a really decent "That's all, folks. I taught, putty tat, what's up, doc." They handed out Shakespeare.
Oh my God!
And it was Hamlet, and I saw it, and I'm like, "Oh, this is great!" And I'm looking at my competition sweat because they're like, "How do you?" No matter what the script is, the actor's job is to stay in character and tell the story.
Yeah.
This is just Porky Pig doing Hamlet. I nailed it, and I knew I was going to nail it. I had no doubt in my mind I was not going to nail that because, look, I'm more comfortable in Porky Pig's pigskin than I am in my own. The challenge today with the character is, if you want to use Mel as a reference, for Porky, the good stuff, because as Mel got older, his voice changed and the writing changed. It wasn't as good in the TV specials in the 80s.
Yeah.
So early 60s is when the last theatrical Porkies were produced. Well, Mel Blanc playing Porky Pig was never in contemporary situations like cell phones, computers, Uber drivers, et cetera, et cetera. We have to keep the integrity of the character while playing the characters in contemporary situations. So that means you've got to take your imagination one step further, but you still have to honor the character.
Yeah, you talk about that contemporary thing. I mean, one of my favorite iterations, and I know, everybody has their thoughts on, especially the last, maybe like 5 to 10 years, different versions. I mean, everybody's raving about the new Looney Tunes. You guys are, the folks over at Warner's, and you guys doing the voices.
Now, are you talking about Looney Tunes cartoons or the new Looney Tunes, which was the one we did before Looney Tunes cartoons?
The ones that are on HBO Max.
Thank you, because I even get confused.
Because was it the new Looney Tunes,
well,
right?
We did Duck Dodgers, then we did the Looney Tunes show, then we did new Looney Tunes, and now we're doing Looney Tunes cartoons.
And there was also Wabbit.
Well, Wabbit became New Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
So. It was called Wabbit when they first did it. In fact, I only came in at the very end of the first season. They weren't going to have Porky. And the end of the first season, I came in, and it was still called Wabbit. And then I came back the next year, and it was called New Looney Tunes.
Jeez. Well, like I was saying, my favorite iteration about contemporary, I loved the Looney Tunes show.
Did you?
And I know a lot of people are like, oh, I don't like that, but I liked the idea of Bugs and Daffy being like that odd couple roommate thing.
Well, I will tell you, I enjoyed doing it. I love Hugh Davison, Rachel Ramros. Our writer producers came from the Groundlings.
Yeah.
They did a lot of stunt casting. They got, I think, Kristen Wiig
Yeah.
for Lola. I never met her. They got Fred Armisen for Speedy Gonzalez. I will tell you, we did some of my all-time favorite Looney Tunes gags. One of my all-time favorite ones was where there's a pizza place. I think Speedy Gonzalez had a pizza place.
Pizzeria.
There we go. And Porky's eating a pepperoni pizza, and Daffy's like, "You do realize what that is?" And he's like, "Hey, what?" It was hysterical. I love that Porky was a bit of a cannibal.
Yeah, and there's the one where Daffy thought he was like a serial killer.
I don't remember that. I do remember one, and I got an Emmy nomination for it.
There's one. It's been a while since I watched it, but like either he thought Porky was a serial killer, or somebody was after Porky. It was like dark, and Porky was, and I vaguely remember Porky was doing these things, and Daffy was like freaking out.
Well, we did one where
I can't think of the episode offhand.
We did one where they were looking for truffles.
Yes, I remember that one.
And Porky gets butt naked, gets on all fours because pigs can sniff out truffles. And I got an Emmy nomination for that. And I think it was not because of my vocal performance. I think it was the visual of Porky on all fours naked.
But again, it's one of those things, keeping the characters contemporary and bringing them into current things. And and again, talking about the contemporaneous, talking about the HBO Max Looney Tunes, if somebody is working on it, obviously they've made some changes, like we're seeing in regards to what the characters are doing to one another, like with Elmer Fudd, for instance. Do you think making those changes going forward with the characters is a smart move?
It's not my job to know if it's a smart move. Seriously. The logic in me says, okay, he can't have a gun, but he can have knives and bombs. Okay, look, this is Bob talking. This is not the producer of the show talking, because I'm not the producer. It's the moment we start to cloud real violence with animation violence, or real violence with fantasy violence, we have a problem. I think it's important for kids to know it's just a cartoon. The Three Stooges aren't really hurting each other.
Yeah.
So that's my personal opinion. Does Elmer Fudd not have a gun affect the quality of this show? Oh God, no. Because the writing is so good. The character designs, it's got full orchestra music. The boards are amazing. I mean, the first one we did was a short called Curse of the Monkey Bird. I'm looking at the storyboard and I'm literally weeping, because it is like looking at a classic Looney Tunes cartoon.
Yeah. No,
so I do not think that the quality suffers because of these contemporary decisions.
Yeah.
But I've done a lot worse.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk a little bit about some of the other things that you did. And we're having a question here now. They want to know about the Winter Soldier in Avengers Assemble.
Oh, okay.
Tell us a little bit about that.
I've done them in games. I did them in that, and I just did them in a game recently. Fun character. Very, very, very different than anything wacky zany. He's just very brooding, very troubled. He's had a rough life. But I love playing that character.
Yeah. And then, let's certainly talk about this. And you and I talked briefly about it. I mean, here's something completely different than Porky. And for those folks at home who don't know, if you saw the movie Spirited Away, No Face.
Yeah.
Bob was No Face. What was it like? So working obviously in American animation and then going in and doing an anime film. Were there some differences in the recording and just the whole process?
Well, I had done quite a bit of anime, so I knew the process. Anime is, I always tell my students that, first of all, anime doesn't pay nearly as much as they call it prelay or American animation. It should pay more, because the skills it takes to watch the screen, read the line, stay in character, act, react, it just takes a lot of skill. The anime fans out there are the best in all of animation. I was hired for this film. I didn't audition for this character. I was hired because of Pixar and because of Mickey McGowan. I had done a ton of Pixar movies. Mickey McGowan was the casting director who brought the ensemble actors in. And because Pixar was developing or producing the English dub of this movie, we had all worked together. So that's how I got this film. And it was literally like, we'd like you to play this little frog. And I said, okay. And I played the little frog. And then they went, well, this ghost no-face character eats the frog and kind of morphs and takes on the personality and the body. So you should play him too. I said, okay. Literally, that's how I got those parts. And I watched the film. You know, you can listen to the Japanese, but it's not going to really help you because unless you speak Japanese, and their performance is very different. But I had a blast doing that. I tell you, I ad-libbed one bit in that movie, and if your fans have seen the movie, they'll know what I'm talking about. He eats at some point tons and tons and tons and tons of stuff, and then he vomits. And they wanted me to make a constant sound of him spewing all this stuff out of his mouth. And when you do anime, you have to match lip flaps in sync. And I just made the sound of him puking. And then I saw one other little mouth flap. And I just went, excuse me. And they kept it. You know, I think to do anime well, you've got to be this much psychic. Because the mouth might flap twice. And the line is, anybody want a burger? Well, how do you fit that into this? You have to make it work. Or you might see the mouth flap like this, and the line is what? You got to make it work. But anime actors are geniuses. Yeah,
I mean, and you know, over in Japan where they do all this stuff, like I mean, and they roll so much stuff out. Not that we don't roll a lot of it out here in the States too, but it really is, like you said, anime fans, these huge fans. It is such a different kind of art form, you know, that people just like really love and like treasure, like especially like these films like Spirited Away and the other ones that they did. Oh gosh, I can't think of the other, like Totoro. I can't think of the other ones.
Yeah, we did one called Ponyo. Yeah.
The Studio Ghibli films, like I mean, people love those movies and stuff. And then you mentioned like Disney and Pixar. You know, you're a character, another little guy. You're talking about a frog. You're also this little guy here.
Oh yeah, Bucky. Yeah.
From the Emperor's New Groove. Now, let me ask you, working on that film, because you had a great cast in that movie. Did you guys get to record together for that? Did you get to work with Burton?
No, when you do a feature film, first of all, you don't do it in order. Your first day, you might be doing page 60. You might come back 2 weeks later and do the end. And you might come back a month later and do the first 10 pages. And you work solo. You work by yourself. I didn't audition for that either. Again, Mickey McGowan, God bless her. She just called me up and she said, there's a little squirrel that I think you'd be perfect for. And I've told this story before, but I'll tell it again. Mark Dindal was the director. And I get there and he's kind of going over, this character's name is Kronk. And he speaks squirrel. So he'll say squeak, squeak, and squeak, squeak. And you'll say something and he'll translate it. And I said, well, do you want me to say squeak, squeak, and squeak, squeak? And he said, no, you got to go make up a language. I said, okay. I said, can I think about it for a few minutes? And he said, sure. So I went outside and I sat on a little park bench and I'm thinking, and I swear to you, a little squirrel came running down a tree, came up to me like by my feet on its hind legs. And he looked at me and he went, and went, thank you. So I went inside. I said, Mark, say squeak, squeak, and squeak, squeak. And he said, squeak, squeak, and squeak, squeak. I went, and he goes, yeah, that'll work. So what I would do is I would read Kronk's translation and do it in squirrel. So if Kronk's translation was, he says there's a really weird looking llama about 2 miles that way, I would read that and go, and that's how I did the character. And I did one day and they did a test screening and it got a lot of laughs. So they wrote more gags and they brought me back, I think 2 or 3 times. Then we did a straight to video sequel
Yep.
And then we did 3 years on a series. You never know when you get a tiny little part what it's going to be.
Yeah. Now, when you got to the series, did you guys record together for that? Or
no, I recorded by myself.
Even for the series?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Eartha Kitt.
Well, and I think that was just because of scheduling. So that's what's happening today is we're so busy that, I mean, for Looney Tunes cartoons, even before COVID, I was recording some of the episodes by myself. I recorded a lot of the Looney Tunes show.
Okay.
By myself. I don't love it. I need to react to my scene partners, and having, you know, the Jeff Bergmans or D. Bradley Baker, who did New Looney Tunes, to have them in the room. Joe Alaskey, when we did Duck Dodgers, you know, I spoke at Joe's funeral or his memorial, and I said doing Duck Dodgers with him was like Fred and Ginger. We would just dance the dance. And I can remember a few times he would just be a little bit difficult with the director, because a director may not say the right adjective or the right word. And, you know, he'd get real frustrated. And I'd say to him, more Frizz Freeling, less Chuck Jones. And he would know exactly what I'm saying. Because we both know this franchise backwards and forwards. Yeah. So yeah, that was a fun show to work on because we worked so well together.
We have Chris Brown. He's asking. The name came up. I guess. I'm assuming you knew Greg Burson. He's asking about Greg.
I did know Greg. Yeah, very well.
And because Greg also studied with Dawes.
With Dawes, and took over many of his voices.
Yeah, for a while then. And I know you meant, and just again thinking another person from the world of Henson. I don't think he studied with Dawes, but he worked on a lot of those shows as Greg Berg. Another great, really good guy. So I mean, and it's such a small group of people, and I guess that kind of could go into the next part I want to talk about is and again, something I remember from your class, and you just mentioned it now with the squirrel. It was a lot of improv that really got that. So for people who are interested in getting into the voice acting career, you know, there's a lot more to it than just being able to do the voice of a character, or, you know, creating your own voice. Like, what are some of the skills, some of the advice that you might give some people who do want to, you know, get into this career?
Well, first of all, it's not about the voice at all. All characters have a voice, but not all voices have character. It's all about character, and it's all about acting. So my advice to anybody, whether you live in LA or you live elsewhere, is study acting. And don't just take a couple of classes and say, I'm ready for voiceover. I did 4 years of voiceover, 2 years at an acting conservatory, and 3 years of improv. And then I was ready to make a demo and compete. So you can study acting anywhere. You know, study acting, study improv, then study voiceover. When it comes to creating characters for cartoons, they want originality. When you're demo ready, look, here's what people today have. People who are watching this that I didn't. It's what they're watching this on. Yeah. I didn't have the internet. So I couldn't go to some magical electronical platform and listen to demos. Today, you know, there's only a handful of agents in Los Angeles that represent the bulk of the animation actors: Atlas Talent, CESD, SBV, DPN, AVO, A3, Innovative, Imperium 7. You can go to those websites and you can listen to those actors' demos. Listen to those actors' demos. That's what they don't need. Okay? You don't want to make a demo that consists of the same old that they already represent. Nobody needs another witch. Nobody needs another little kid. Nobody needs another old man. They need an original witch, an original little kid, an original old man. And then you go, how original can a witch be? Well, compare Margaret Hamilton in The Wizard of Oz with Witch Hazel that June Foray did. Yeah. With Witchy Poo from H.R. Puffin stuff. Okay? It's called acting. It's called creating characters. It's not easy. This is why the majority out there who pursue this, it doesn't happen. It doesn't work. But the majority of the people who try to be dancers, it doesn't work either. Because the cream floats to the top. You really do have to be a brilliant actor.
Like, because you find now, do you find, and because I know you do a lot of teaching, do you find like a lot of people with their demo reels, like they start off, I think you mentioned this too in their class, was like that's great at like, you know, Christmas time when you're with the family, you can do Homer Simpson, you can do Fred Flintstone, you can do Bugs Bunny, and so people are like, oh, cool, you know, so that's what I'm gonna do a demo reel. And it's going to be like the whole Warner Brothers and Hanna-Barbera library. Do you find a lot of people do submit things like that? And it's like,
well, people who aren't in LA who don't know, and you know, you can't know what you don't know. Here's the problem with an impression. With an impression, everybody has the right to say, that's not quite perfect. If it's an original character, nobody can say you don't sound perfect because it's original. You created it. So, look, I'm a perfect example of somebody who's been blessed to have played classic characters, but that was circumstantial. The bulk of what I do, my day-to-day auditions is creating new. You know, I'm doing a series right now for Netflix where I had to create a new character. I just did a show for Nickelodeon. I had to create a new character. That's what we do. That's the bulk of what we do. So people have to get out of their head funny voices, impressions. They need to create original characters. And just like a commercial demo today has to reflect today's advertising landscape, you don't do a commercial demo that sounds like commercials from the 70s and 80s, right? When you do your animation demo, how do your characters fit into Nick Jr. compared to PBS Kids, compared to Cartoon Network between noon and 3 p.m. versus Disney XD noon to 3 p.m. Your FX characters primetime compared to Fox primetime. You need to think platform, casting director. If you're interested in doing voices for cartoons, pick a cartoon you love, go to IMDb and learn the players, the voice directors, the actors, cross-reference who their agents are.
The Andrew
will tell you that's who you need to be with.
And all those kind of people.
Yeah.
Those are the key things. And because I remember the other thing you mentioned too was like you and I are speaking right now. These are original voices, you know, and just work with that, you know.
Well, yeah, you got to start with something. If you can't think of a different voice when you look at the copy, at the character, start with your own voice. I auditioned this morning for an episode of an existing cartoon, and they wanted something very real, but his personality was so not me. That's, you know, that's where you adjust. You know, you can take your own voice, but you adjust. It's the character, the personality, the relationships within the show, within the episode of the series. You know, who am I talking to? What's our relationship? Where are we? All of this has to be taken into consideration also on your demo. You're not just doing voices, you're acting and reacting.
And you know, animation, video games, audiobooks, like, you know, you need to be able to hit all those emotions.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Scream, whisper, whatever it is that you have to do. It's an art. It's an art form.
Without a doubt.
Now, I do want to leave the world of animation for a moment and talk about another thing from your career. Tell us a little bit more about
Oh my gosh! Wow, a color version. So 150 years ago, I hosted the kids version of Jeopardy for Game Show Network, which was called Jep. Same producers, same writers, and it was. So here's how I got Jep. I was in New York promoting Space Jam on a talk show. And I got a call from an agent who represented hosts who said, look, you were very good on that. Have you ever thought of hosting? And I said, no, I don't want to host. And my voiceover agent at the time said, don't be a schmuck. If they know your face, I can get you more for your voice. I said, okay. So I went to this hosting agent and I was kind of like, I don't want to do this, but okay. The first thing they sent me on was I think they called it Kids Jeopardy at the time.
Okay.
And I went through the first round and then the second round. And then I got a call back. I mean, I got a screen test. It wasn't even a call back. I'd already had the call back. I got a screen test. And my screen test was to run an episode of Jeopardy on the set of Jeopardy with Johnny Gilbert as my announcer.
Oh my God.
And they had 3 kids as the contestants. They were, you know, just for the screen test. They were their parents were executives of Sony Pictures because that's who produced it.
Wow.
So I walked up to the kids before we started. I said, kids, make me look good. I'll buy you each a car. And when we started, one category was famous cartoon characters.
Oh my God. Perfect.
So it was like, he's got a girlfriend, Olive Oil. Oh, and he likes to eat spinach. Who was Popeye. At the end of a Warner Brothers cartoon, he says, that's all, folks. Who was Porky Pig. And so when it was all over, one of the writers or somebody came up to me and he said, have you ever thought of voiceover? And I said, that's my day job. This is foreign to me. And I booked it.
Nice. And I know I couldn't find it. You got to meet Alex Trebek while you were doing it.
I met Alex twice in my life. He came down to one of the tapings. And he could not have been nicer. He was listed in the credits as a creative consultant. I'm not sure exactly what he did. And then I met him about a year or so before he passed away at the Daytime Emmys last year. I'll tell you the difference between my show and his show is since these were kids, if somebody was in negative territory if someone's in negative territory on Jeopardy, they don't get to play Final Jeopardy.
Yeah.
But because they were kids, they wanted to make sure everybody played. So they would give the person with the lowest score enough points to have at least $500 to play with. Yeah. But whatever they gave them, just out of fairness, they gave the other two contestants. I had to figure this out in real time in my head. Okay. So it would be like, well, John, you're at negative 500, but everybody plays Final Jep, so we're going to give you 1,000 points, which takes you up to 500. But just to be fair, we're going to give Bridget 1,000 points, which takes her from 21 to 31. That's easy, okay? When they're at negative 375, and I'm like, and I'm freaking out, because I'm not a math guy. That's why I went into voiceover. Alex was there at one of those situations, and during a commercial break, he came up to me and he goes, oh, you've got it much more difficult than I do. And he goes, tell them to do this for you. I said, but your name is Alex Trebek. Mine isn't. I can't do that right now.
That's so funny. And again, that's one of those experiences where like you did not, and I didn't know that story that they discovered you during Space Jam either.
Yeah. It was, and I was a one-hit wonder. I never really hosted anything else. And we only lasted one season. It was so much fun. It was the hardest job I've ever done in my entire life.
Wow. But again, it's like you never know who's watching, and you auditioned without even knowing it, right?
I got to tell you, today I get emails from adults who are the kids on Jep.
Oh my God.
Which is really cool.
That's so funny. And I mean, and also because I know we're going to wrap up soon. Can you talk a little bit about, because you mentioned the Daytime Emmy Awards, and I know you were also involved with a lot of behind the scenes stuff too. But you're with is it the Screen Actors Guild? I believe it is.
Well, I'm a member of Screen Actors Guild.
I
think you're referring to. I'm on the board of governors at the TV Academy.
Yes, the TV Academy. So what exactly is your role, and how did you go from voice actor into that role?
Well, it's a volunteer position, but you're elected. I joined the Television Academy in 1994 with the goal to be on the board of governors, and I love TV. It's that simple. I am just a complete couch potato who loves a remote in my hand. And I, along with my co-governor, Patrica Darbo, represent the performers, the actors. And each discipline, directors, writers, musicians, actors, have two governors. My previous governor before Patrica was Lily Tomlin. Yeah. And before that, it was Kathy Joosten. And if your fans know Desperate Housewives, she played the old cranky neighbor.
Oh, wow.
And she was an old cranky actress, but she was one of my dearest friends. So it's a lot of fun. We do everything from evaluate, do the Emmys need changes for the performer categories, to presenting events for our members, career enhancing events. It's a lot of fun. After this year, I've got one more year that I'm termed out.
Now, let me ask you too, in this role, and there's always these big conversations about voice actors. Do you really push for more recognition for you and your fellow voice actors? Because I know
we've already got categories. We've got best character voice and we've got best narrator.
Because I know there's always been that argument, like a lot of times you guys are oftentimes overlooked because we're doing this movie and we're bringing in Chris Rock and.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't care. I have no problem putting on the executive producer, studio executive's hat and go, who's going to bring in more box office, the well-known face or the multiple voice guy? I'm fortunate that I worked on a lot of Disney, Pixar, DreamWorks animated features. I'm never the lead, but I'm 25, 30, 40 characters throughout the film. I'm getting my creative juices flowing, and I get great residuals. I don't take it personally because I get it. I totally understand. Now, for me, it's when they recast a classic character with a celebrity. So to me, that's slapping the face of the core fans. I don't think that's a smart business decision, to be honest.
I mean, perfect example was Scoob, Zac Efron as Fred.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, but thank God they kept Fred as
Scooby. Yeah,
you know, but sometimes it works. I got to tell you, I was really pissed off that they cast Justin Timberlake as Boo Boo in the Yogi Bear movie. He was great. I was pissed off. I was like, Justin Timberlake was freaking brilliant as Boo Boo, and I didn't want to like him, and I'm really pissed off that I liked him. But he was perfect. It was not a stunt cast. He deserved that part.
He did a good job.
The movie had been a little bit better, but he deserved that part.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. He did do a really, I mean, if you didn't see the name tied to it, you'd be like, wow, he sounds like Boo Boo.
He did a damn good job. Yeah.
Let me just ask you this question, because someone was asking about Michael Jordan. And what was it like working with Michael Jordan? And I'm going to go out on them and say you probably didn't directly work with him.
I didn't even meet him. No, we're recording the voices in the soundstage at Warner Brothers. He's on another soundstage shooting the on camera. In fact, at the rap party on the lot, I saw this very tall bald head walking in the distance, and I was like, "Oh, I got to go meet him." And I went running up to him. These two security guards stopped me, and I said, "I just want to meet Michael." And this guy looks at me, and goes, "Nobody meets Michael." And I said, "I'm Porky Pig and Tweety and Marvin the Martian in the movie." And he goes, "I don't care if you're Mickey Mouse. You ain't meeting Michael." Okay, I'll go away now. Bye. So no, I didn't get a chance to meet Michael.
Now let me just ask you: in that film, did like Billy West? Did he go on the set and at least record or do lines to Michael?
Not that I know of. Not that I know of. No, he might have. I didn't ask.
Well, because that's what I was going to ask you now. Obviously, we mentioned Michael Jordan. Is there anything you can tell us about Space Jam 2?
I hear they're making a sequel,
and it's coming out this summer.
That's what they tell me. Yeah, I hear that. Sure.
Right. And I mean, we can expect that you will be in the film?
I don't know.
You don't know yet. Okay.
You never know.
Okay. Because we see these logos and the little blip on HBO Max. So
I will tell you this. I have seen a lot of articles and a lot of things online, and there's a lot of misinformation out there.
Really? Interesting.
We've been talking a sequel to Space Jam since we did the first one. There was gonna be Hockey Jam. There was gonna be Golf Jam. I mean, and I heard that Ben Stiller was attached, that Ron Howard was attached, and I'm like, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. And so I will tell you that this one is real. This one really is happening.
And it's really coming this summer?
I don't know.
You don't even know.
I'm being very serious. I do not know.
All right. Cool. And then we got a quick question about Luke Skywalker. How is it taking over that role? Because I mean, voice actor wise, I'm sure you've worked with Mark Hamill several times.
No,
you haven't worked with him either.
No, we know each other. You know. In fact, I'll tell you a funny story. I was at a Comic-Con, and the first time I met him, and it was Mark Evanier's panel at San Diego. And there was a group of actors at the top and a group of actors down below. And Mark Evanier goes, "And so, Mark, you and Bob have something in common, because Bob does Luke Skywalker for a lot of the games." And Ham was like, "What?" And he knew. He was the nicest guy on the planet. I told this story before, but I'll tell it again. Do you have time for another story?
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. If you got time.
Okay, cool. This was in the 90s, I guess, 90s, maybe even 80s. I don't remember. I turned down the audition.
Mm-hmm.
I said to my agent, "I can't do Mark Hamill." And my agent says, "Okay." So she calls the producer, and then she calls me back and she says, "They still want to see you." And I said, "Okay." And I walked into the audition. I said to the producers of the games, "I can't do Mark Hamill." And they said, "Don't do Mark Hamill. Do Luke Skywalker." I went, oh, okay. And I've seen the Star Wars movies. I'm not a diehard fan, so I don't know the lore. I don't know the universe. So they had to teach me this is pre-Jedi Luke and post-Jedi Luke. You know, pre-Jedi Luke, he's kind of whiny, and he's got this little, he's a doofus, you know. He's real immature, and then he gets this Force thing, and he gets a little bit more centered. The Force is with you. He's just a whole different attitude. So I auditioned. They wanted to book me, and I said to my agent, call Mark's agent and see if he wants it. Because if it's a negotiation thing or he doesn't even know this is going on, I don't want to take a job he wants. And it was at a time in his career he was trying to distance himself, I think, from the character. So my agent called back and said, no, he doesn't want it. So that's how and why I got the job.
Yeah, because I know at this point now, like they've done some of the, for Disney Plus, or I guess it's Disney Plus or Disney Channel, they did some of those Forces of Destiny shorts, and I know he's done the voice.
Oh yeah, the last time I did Luke was a few weeks ago. I did another Robot Chicken, and which was fun because it was older Luke from the most recent film.
Oh really?
Which is a Luke I'd never done before, you know. And Mark's voice now is a little bit different. You know, he's got this layer of gravel and something that's going on. And I'm like, okay, I'll give it a shot. I think he's better, but what the heck?
All the screaming as Joker, maybe, right?
Isn't he brilliant at that?
The best Joker,
without a doubt. I mean, listen, there've been Heath Ledger was terrific. Okay, Joaquin Phoenix was phenomenal. Very different take. I'm a Cesar Romero kind of guy, you know. Anytime you can get an actor and put white makeup on a mustache and pretend like the audience won't notice. But Mark Hamill's Joker was and is, as far as I'm concerned, the best.
Well, and I mean the same thing as we're talking about voice actors. Kevin Conroy, like his Batman, and the way he switches from Bruce Wayne to Batman too. My God.
Which, you know, if you look at the old Fleischer Superman cartoons, this is a job for Superman. It was very cliche and it was very phony baloney. And Kevin is such a solid, again, Andrea Romano, voice director.
There is truly something to be said. But again, once about all that Andrea Romano, and I guess she came from Hanna-Barbera too. You know?
Yes, she came from Hanna-Barbera. No, she's retired now.
Yeah,
but I would when we're not in a pandemic, I would see her all the time at the TV Academy at different functions. You know, there's some people in this industry or this world where you see them and you make eye contact and you just grin. And she is just such a dear, wonderful person. I see her and I gotta hug you now. You know, I love her. I love her to death.
Man, and yeah, again, and you're mentioning her. We were talking about Tom Ruger. So many people that went from Hanna-Barbera to Warner's. I mean, and prior to, you know, and like that whole, again, that Tiny Toons, Animaniacs, Batman era of shows, even up through Duck Dodgers, and you know, just such an amazing voice crew, creative crew, just across the board. One other thing I wanted to ask too, and you were kind of touching upon that with the story with Mark Hamill. Do you find sometimes, I remember you touching this in your class, that you go to an audition and they're like, all right, Bob, we want you to do this, but can you sound a little bit more like Rob Paulson, you know? And you know how like, because I know you guys all have, it's a very mutual admiration society. Like you pretty much say, well, why don't you call Rob, kind of thing.
Well, you know, first of all, your first round of auditions will be in your home studio. There's no director. So there's nobody there telling you what they want or what they don't want. If you get a call back, then I've never had anybody say, can you be a little bit more D. Bradley Baker? You know, they don't do that. What they might do, and this happens quite a bit, is a cast like The Simpsons or Futurama. They might be in a contract dispute, and they send out auditions. And this is when I say to my students, do not audition for this. What they're asking for is a fraction of what this property makes for the studio or the network. And if you're lucky, you will be in the situation where you know you have value and you'll be asking in a negotiation for more money. And you wouldn't want anybody else coming in and taking your, don't break in that way. I would never I mean, like I said with Mark, you know, I said call his agent, see if he wants to do this.
It's a respect thing.
It's a I don't know how the current generation is, but I'll tell you where I learned it, or at least I experienced it for the first time was with Dawes. Back, just a few years before he passed away, Quaker Oats changed ad agencies, and they wanted to change the voice of Captain Crunch. And Dawes created Captain Crunch.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if he knew about it because my agent called me to audition for it.
Oh,
and I called him up, and I basically narked on them. I said, they're trying to replace you. And he's like, oh yeah, I know. And I said, well, I'm not reading for it. And he goes, oh no, listen, I'm out. They don't want me. I'm too old. They want something different. Why don't you come over? I'll coach you. I went, really? He goes, wow. Oh yeah, sure. If someone's going to get it, I want it to be someone I know. And I didn't get it because I wasn't right for it. But I went over to his house, and he coached me. But he was coaching me. Captain Crunch stays crunchy, even in milk. He was coaching me to do his Captain Crunch. Well, that's not what they really wanted. They wanted a younger version. And so I wasn't right for it either way. But the bottom line is he was a nice guy, and he knew the writing was on the wall. They did not want to renew his contract. In a situation like that, I say, sure. Yeah. The characters do live on. But don't go after anybody's job.
Yeah. That's bad business.
It's just a gentleman's agreement, and karma's a bitch.
Yeah, there you go.
And your fellow actors are not going to respect you.
Yeah, because everybody, word will get around. That's how you got the job, and especially in such a small community like the voice community. Everybody who's. You
know, I remember a few years ago, my friend Lucy Taylor passed away, and she was the voice of Minnie Mouse. And the day we found out she passed away, people were emailing me, can you coach me on Minnie Mouse?
I remember you posted something about that.
I did, and I posted a giant, like a long, people, time, place. I mean, not right now. This character will continue. I can guarantee it, but not right now. And Caitlin Robrock, who was a student of mine, who got Minnie Mouse, who deserved Minnie Mouse. She's brilliant, but there are a lot of actresses out there that I lost a lot of respect for because they were, look, I get it. I wanted to play a classic character too, but the day Mel died wasn't the day I called my agent and said, okay, when are they? When are the auditions? I'm ready to go now. I didn't know. No, if it was meant to be, I would wait for that to happen. Yeah, because I do believe in having some kind of integrity.
No, absolutely. Absolutely, and that's with any profession, you know. Yeah. There has to be that time, and when the time is right, it'll happen for you.
And like I did with Dawes, you know, if a situation comes up where you hear, ooh, they're recasting an existing character, call the original actor, or we can find us on social media and say, okay, what's up, and would you rather I didn't do this? I'll give you an example. I remember Maurice LaMarche was doing Yosemite Sam. He was also doing Lexus. It was killing his voice. Yeah. And he walked away from it. He just said, I can't keep doing this. And Fred Tatasciore was auditioned and booked it, but he called Mo and he said, I won't do it without your blessing. And Mo is a gentleman. He said, look, yeah, it's yours. I'm not doing it right now. So please go with God and have fun and drink a lot of water. So that's the gentleman thing to do, or the gentle lady thing to do as well.
Yeah, you know, and you mentioned it. I just was reading an article about Rob Paulson the other day, and you know the recent struggle that he had in his life. Yeah. And in the article, and I mean, obviously we now all know what happened with him, but he was in the article said that he was nervous to let anybody know because you know his income comes from his voice. But the biggest thing, which I thought was really powerful, was he was concerned in the Animaniacs revival that if he had to step back for health reasons, it was going to affect the rest of the cast who they brought back. And I was like, what a horrible thing.
I did a podcast with Rob for Gilbert Gottfried a couple of years ago. And I said to him, buddy, I had no idea you were sick. I feel so bad as a friend. And we're not like, you know, go to each other's kids' bar mitzvah friends. But He said, "Look, I didn't tell anybody. It's not you. Don't worry about it. I didn't want it to be out there." So, and you know what? If I was in the same situation, I would have done the exact same thing. You want some privacy.
Yeah.
And you don't want rumors, and you don't want people talking. We're living in the E generation where, a viral, hey, did you hear so and so has whatever? Becomes, didn't hear so and so died, and they're reading it. So yeah, he did. He did.
In an instant, it spreads like wildfire.
Right.
So let me just ask you, because we'll start wrapping up now. You said you're doing a lot of recording. I've had some animators and a lot of creators on here, and this pandemic, as horrible as it has been for the world, one thing that we've talked a lot about is certainly some of the goodness that's going to come from it. And I think really one of the positive things, I mean, creativity is going to thrive like in the next couple of years to see what comes from this last year. I mean, God, we're almost to March already where we started.
Yeah.
See what comes from this world that we're in, and going forward creative wise, I think is gonna be pretty amazing. And the one thing that I know has been constant as really the rest of Hollywood has shut down, animation, my God, has been thriving during this because like you said, you guys reinvented the wheel, voice wise, and all the animators and creators they're doing their stuff at home studios. So I'll ask you, do you think what the world needs now is more Porky Pig, more cartoons, because and I agree. Do you think that we're going to see a lot more, cheerier, optimistic, creative things like that, like what you do?
I don't think you're going to see more cheery things. I just think you're going to see it continue. I think there's a genre of animation for every fan. Voiceover, especially animation, was the only acting genre that didn't stop with COVID. Broadway stopped. TV's soap opera, movie, they're back, but limited. Mm-hmm. We were the only genre of acting that kept going. I do not take that for granted at all. I'm very, very blessed and fortunate that I'm able to continue doing what I do. You're not going to see any more of it because it never went away. Mm-hmm. We've got, Disney Plus, HBO Max, we got Hulu, Netflix, Amazon, we've got Cartoon Network, we've got, MeTV is now showing classic cartoons like a Saturday morning block with a host in it. I love it. Look, it's here to stay. It's never been more popular. Motion pictures, cartoons bring in more money than anything else. So yeah, if you're not a cartoon fan, there's plenty of stuff out there for you. But if you are, boy, what a great time to have a pandemic because there's just a plethora.
So much. And are there anything that outside of the HBO Max Looney Tunes that you're doing right now, is there anything else that people can tune in and
I'm trying to think of what I don't have an NDA with. It's been announced. I can talk about it. There's a show for Netflix called Ridley Jones that I worked on. And I don't know when it comes out, but it's created by and produced by Chris Nee, who also did Doc McStuffins, and she is a genius writer, producer. I can't talk about that. I will tease something.
Okay.
There's a really neat one coming out somewhere, and the fans are going to go crazy.
What's somebody that we love, I assume? Something that we love, a property that we love.
Perhaps, yeah.
Okay.
Perhaps. And it's not Looney or Toony. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not Looney Tunes.
All right. Well, that was thinking of just one other quick thing. Someone asked, Tiny Toon Adventures. You said that was where you started. Have you heard anything if you're going to be a part of the new Tiny Toon University for HBO Max?
I auditioned for it.
Okay.
That's all I can tell you. I haven't heard anything else. I auditioned for it.
Gotcha. Because I know there's been a lot of again, the internet, the rumor mill is out there about all this stuff.
Well, the thing is, people make stuff up.
Yeah.
Or somebody speculates something, and all of a sudden somebody grabs that and makes it a truth, and it's not. And I can't tell you how many things I've read that I never. If you go to my IMDb page, it's full of mistakes. It's got stuff I never even auditioned for, and half my career's not even on it. So you can't. People don't believe anything until it comes out.
Well, because the one thing I know I saw for Tiny Toons is the big conversation was Cree Summer and Elmira, and her not. Oh, she's not going to be a part, but the show hasn't even been created yet. How do you know she's not going to be a part of it yet? So who knows? But
I don't speculate. I don't know.
Just let it happen. Let it happen.
Yeah. All I can tell you is, but see, much of the cast are no longer with us. Joe's no longer with us. Don Messick is no longer with us.
Yeah.
So those characters are they have to be played by somebody else.
Yeah.
June Foray, if they bring in Granny, no longer with us. Candy Milo's been doing Granny for Looney Tunes since New Looney Tunes, and she's phenomenal.
Yeah. So and again, that's even if they want to go in the direction with the older characters.
I don't know. If
they want to have one or two of the original characters in a whole new Looniversity cast. That's to wait and see. I mean, that again, going back to Animaniacs, they kept the three mains and Pinky and the Brain, and everybody else was just forgotten about for now. So who's to say? But yeah. But no, Bob, this has been great tonight.
It's my pleasure. It was fun.
And I mean, everybody that tuned in, thank you for your comments and questions. And if people want to reach out to you, what is the best way that people can find you and shoot you a message?
Let's see. Instagram, bergen.bob.
Okay.
Twitter @Bob Bergen. I'm pretty easy to find. I mean, I'm kind of at my friend limit on Facebook, but you can follow me. I'm so easy to find. Everybody is. That's the nice thing about this industry today is that, you want to ask Pinky or the Brain a question, they're on Facebook. You'll find them.
They're out there. Yeah, absolutely. So again, thank you to everybody. Bob, once again, we do have a request from one of our viewers since we're closing out the show. If you can do our little signature there.
I'm sorry. What's the line?
I don't know.
Who asked that?
Our buddy Sarah Jean, who's been with us the whole night.
The Sarah Jean, ain't it? Now you're being a pig about it. Okay. Thank you very much, Andy. That's all, folks.
All right. Thank you once again, Bob and Porky. And we will see everybody next week here with Mike D'Alessio from the Marvel promotions from all the Comic-Con. So we'll see you all next week. Have a great weekend.